Hi everyone, my name is Sandra. I'm a creative editor at Depositphotos. This is a presentation about a project that we've been working on at Depositphotos called Stock Photography Then and Now. The project covers the change in the aesthetics of stock photography in the past 10 years. And one of the reasons why we decided to take on this project is because Depositphotos as a stock photography platform turned 10 last year. So clients turn to us to find images that they need for all kinds of projects. And in these 10 years, the business, of course, has changed so much, and so have the aesthetics of stock photos. You may have noticed that, older stock photos from like 10 years ago look nothing like the ones of today. And with this project, we wanted to kind of show and share the story of why that is. So the Depositphotos library has over 170 million files, and it includes not only photos, but also videos, illustrations, and vectors. You simply type in your query and you find images, fit for your tasks or your projects. And we offer solutions for both individuals and businesses to help them visualize their ideas. And our mission is to make visual content accessible to everyone. So we offer flexible pricing options for all of the visuals. And these are just some of the images from our library today. As a company, we really value creativity and take on different projects that involve creative communities, both from Depositphotos and outside of it as well. Every year, we release a visual trends report, and these are some of the first projects that I got to work on. Visual Trends as a project for us is about the tendencies of the industries and popular types of content in visual communication in general. And it's aimed towards different professionals that needed a little inspiration or something that is going to make their project stand out in the coming year. So our 2020 Trends Report was done in collaboration with creative agencies from different corners of the world. And if you visit the Visual Trends project this year, there's also an extra perk at the end of the website. You can download a PDF file with more insights on this year's trends. So if you visit Depositphotos, it looks like a typical stock photography website. It works like a search engine with supply and demand influencing consumer decisions and also the submissions. So for this reason, we can actually look at how things have changed based on the kinds of images that are bought and sold. And this is quite different from regular professional photography or the works of photography enthusiasts. So this project really started kind of here. This is my best representation of the inspiration. When I started working at Depositphotos, I would write lots of articles and I needed images on a daily basis. And when I search for images, on a business theme, for example, this is what I saw. So if you look at images from 2012 and 2014 on the left and compare them to 2016 and 2017 on the right, something is clearly quite different. And it's about the composition and the lighting and the styling and of course the post-production. So the whole project idea started revolving around me noticing these changes. And me and a few other people were wondering what made photographers change their style? Why do the aesthetics, from 2010 look so different in contrast to today? And so this is kind of how the idea was born. And so we named it Stock Photography Then and Now, or also the evolution of stock photography aesthetics. I've included a link that you can visit to see the whole project and read more about it. But I'll briefly go over the main points in this presentation. So this is a quick way to show three very distinct periods with their own aesthetic and kind of look and feel of photographs. So in 2009, there was a lot of flash photography and images with white backgrounds and studio shots. And in 2014, there are all of these kind of universal stock photo images, but the topics were more kind of diverse. And this was 2014 was kind of the time when we saw the formation of many cliches. And in 2019, what's valued in stock photography is more authentic photographs, and the word is used quite a lot. Photographers are experimenting more. Photos feature real people. There's always natural lighting, and the post-production is kept at the minimum. And so this is a kind of timeline, or like a gradient to show the evolution of some of the aesthetics. So in 2011, for some reason, this was okay, like this businessman in a field with his hands in the air. It's really mysterious, and I doubt that we would ever see something like this featured, in publications or on social media today. Although sometimes you do see really dated photos being used. And so if you move along to 2013, stock photos featured a lot of, classical portraits and smiling people. And again, this is when we started seeing the emergence of, the classical stock photo cliches. And in 2014, stocks had to, capture the changes going on in the world with the, new tech and social media. And so there are a lot of concept pieces, like you see here. In 2015, this was kind of a popular period for very aggressive post-production. And so, all these images are really bold in color, really dated today. And in 2017 and 2018, notice how, the lighting choices are clearly different, how color palettes look nothing like the ones of 2011. And, artistic choices have been made throughout these years. And I hope that this presentation kind of explains and illustrates why that is. And so to go back to, these images between 2011, 2015, I wanted to share some of my favorite cliches that I've been collecting over the years because I personally love them. So here we have the classical hooded hacker, because all hackers look this mysterious with code flying around them. But the cliche is probably fueled by television and some of the different ways in which we, try to portray different professions in a kind of stereotypical way. So next we have the successful businessman showing us his success in this very comprehensive graph. And it's actually a good example to show how with more complex topics, stock photography used the application of, different graphic design elements, which is quite rare nowadays, but sometimes, you still spot these types of images. And the third one, of course, we have the classic handshake because, nothing says business like two men in suits shaking hands. So the phenomenon of cliches in stock photography is this. Many of these images were used, overused, and they therefore become outdated. And they're considered, like the old way of doing things, and were a way to kind of quickly capture concepts and communicate different ideas. So I have another slide of cliches. You can never have too many. So, there's the lady laughing alone with a salad, the big happy family, and families aren't represented in this way anymore, and neither are seniors. And actually, cheerful seniors became a kind of annoyance because, of the misrepresenting the elderly. And so, I wanted to show these cliches because the surprising thing is that, these images are still used today. But I think the important thing to take away from this is that, stock photography platforms have much more creative content, and these stereotypes and, cliches and false representations have nothing to do with, reality or authenticity. And so to better show the change in aesthetics from cliches and these overused images to the authentic ones that we see today, I wanted to show how different categories of images have changed. So I think a quick comparison will give you kind of a good idea of how things are different today. So the top part here is images from 2000s to mid 2010s, and the bottom is content from 2019 and 2020. So, and if we look at the nature category, note that I think the first thing that jumps out at you is the saturation in these older images, and the in comparison how lighting in post production is different. So I think that the top part is more of the classical stock images complying with all the possible rules of photography as well, whereas there's a bit more experimenting with composition and other things today. So the people category underwent an even more dramatic change, because as you can see here, comparing the two halves, they're kind of moving away from studios and into the real world. And we see more artistic shots versus people just smiling into the camera and being so happy. And so the business category is kind of like the crescendo of evolution, I would say, in aesthetics, because I think it's a great example of how in this particular category you can tell that as the world has changed, so has stock photography that has to reflect it in at every step of the way. And in 2020, it's more about contextual and diverse content. It's more atmospheric and unconventional, and the shots are a bit more imaginative, I would say. So basically, all of these image categories and these comparisons, they're a good example of the fact that you can't really get away with many of these images from the 2000s to 2000, like these dated images. They've lost their appeal and their relevance. And so the last one that not the last one, the next category is food and food culture. So there's again a big change in post-production, and there's more attention to details, clearly. And this particular category is a good example of how for photographers cooking wasn't anymore about the final dish. It's actually more about the process, and there's so much room for creativity at every step of the photo shoot, from preparing the food to documenting kind of the process of cooking to the final products. So note how photographers focus also on the art of food making and food preparation, and I find that quite interesting. So in regards to architecture, we see back in the day this kind of corporate, intimidating world, and today it's about new perspectives, thanks to technology and drones. And also urban exploration was one of the things that resulted in new perspectives. So looking at all these categories and how they've changed, it's kind of hard to pinpoint what happened exactly. Why is it that stock photos look so different today? And so one of the outcomes of this project, it wasn't just to show, to visually kind of portray how everything has changed. It's also about, part of the project was also, researching on what exactly influenced stock photography aesthetics. And there were 7 key factors that we explain. And I think that, you can read on the project website, but I wanted to talk about all of these influencing factors by looking at showing you different portfolios of photographers from the Depositphotos library. And so I'll go over some of the things that have influenced the aesthetics. So Mario IV, he's relatively new to stocks, and his works have dramatically changed over the years. And we spoke about advertising with context, which is about one of the factors that influence the aesthetics, and it's about using photography as supporting materials to sell products back in the day, and today the shift to more contextual images. So Mario's first uploads looked like this. There were isolated objects for versatility if need be. And so advertising without context was kind of defining for stock photography and advertising in general. But if you look at this last image of this of the the breakfast and compare it to his portfolio today and this image of the same plate but in context, for example, it's much better to include the environment to show the mood of the place and to give some context. Metaphors, they still exist, but we rarely see those old images. Mario has also ventured into video, as you see with this last example. And it's just an interesting fact that video also started to kind of take over as a format, and it's like relatively fresh with microstock platforms. So I spoke to Michela from DGL Images, and we covered the topic of the new inflow of clients. So stocks at kind of the inception were used by agencies, and with time it included also editors and designers and basically anybody that needed visual content for projects. So stock photography platforms opened up to niche content as a result. So for example, this team of photographers, they back in the day were shooting these universal concepts for trendy themes related to people in 2015. But today, they're producing content for smaller companies and online businesses, startups, and even just, any web user managing websites and blogs. And the result kind of is more categories in stock photography platforms and the expansion of libraries and the portfolios of photographers that focused on these details. Like similar to these images. So with Danon from DGT, we spoke about social media and amateur photography. So DGT specializes in portraits and people, and it's a good window into how this photography category has changed. So social media has influenced how photographers shoot and how they compose images. And it also forced them to think about the final outcome and where the images will be used. Who will see them and who will they appeal to? And these are his works from a year ago, which are very, standard and kind of precise in composition. But today, the team is capturing, these everyday moments in a more authentic way. And we see more social media ready images from this photographer nowadays, and for many other photographers that caught on to the need for this type of social media ready content. Logan and I discussed the changes with mirrorless cameras and other technology. We can't ignore that for example, camera capabilities have improved so much, and that mirrorless cameras are a thing today. And drones are used for new perspectives and so on. So all these things kind of empower stock photographers to do more with less. So Logan, as you can see here with some of his earlier images, he was shooting lots of concepts in these years, like, the classical thumbs up. I'm not sure what the other two are, but today Logan captures everyday moments in his personal life. So they're more authentic and natural photos because they're preferred also over technically perfect ones. And that's a very important point, the breaking out of these kind of strict rules and the old standards of photography and what it can be. With Victor, we spoke about post-production. So this is a big topic of discussion for all photographers, and always has been, I think. So as an influential factor, kind of the movement is that many are rejecting, HDR photography, for example, and moving on to minimal post-production and a more natural look of photos. So Victor's images from 2016, they're very saturated, they're high in contrast, very polished. And this kind of post-production hurts your eyes a bit. And note how also post-production with models was also quite, extreme. And today his images are really, worlds apart. So photographing people has changed a lot, and um, there have been a few movements around the world to even, like ban Photoshop and extreme modification because it's said to promote false ideals. And, many photographers got on board with this idea. Also note how, the colors in these shots are closer to how we see them. There's much less post-production, I think, in general, with many of the submissions we get from photographers in our library. Uh, Art Jazz, he's a stock photographer of 10 years. We were sharing thoughts on this kind of, on one of the influential factors, which is about how photographers acquired kind of this more individual approach to stock and how photographers share their personal style more and more often. Mm, and these are images that, go beyond just authenticity. So we're talking about shots with where the photographer's personal style is really evident. Um, and, little elements that make their work unique and different and give kind of people more variety of choice. Um, and yeah, I would say that many photographers that submit their images, their works are changing and moving in this new direction. So here are some of his works from 2010. And, it's a lot of generic concepts that were okay for those times because they kind of fit the market. But today, this is more of the photographer style that you see here. So he chose this direction with his recent works. And we see many different approaches to stocks. Every portfolio is as unique as the photographer himself or herself. And it's also about, stepping away from all these cliches. So I'm almost finishing up here. So in regards to 2020 and beyond, what is the new aesthetic? And so we all agreed that with our contributors that it's the union of these three things and ideas. It's first and foremost authenticity, creativity, but also emotional content. So I would say that images today are much more artistic, and they're, considerate of the wants and needs of the people that turn to stock photography when they need images for their projects. And these three things are really valued in stock photography and, microstocks in general, but also photography as a means of expression and reflection. And one last thing is that, it's true, we still see cliches and they still exist, and you'll still find them in every library. But comparing late 2000 to today shows that generic shots and cliches are being replaced by this type of content. So, lastly, people, often ask me where they can find all these, new images and the new aesthetics. And stock libraries can be a bit tricky, and it can take time to find the perfect images. So aside from the collections on our main Depositphotos website on the homepage, our company blog also has a section on stock photo collections, uh, which you will, where I hope you can find some inspiration. And the images in these collections, they're handpicked by our content curators and can save you a lot of time. And of course, all these images are also in line with the aesthetics and trends of today. So to finish this presentation, I wanted to mention that the project is finally complete, and we have a website, and it's been translated to many different languages. And if you would like to read more about it and read about the story of the evolution of stock photography aesthetics, you can visit the website and explore all the visuals and see this transition into the aesthetics of today. So, and so all of the images in this presentation, they're available, of course, on Depositphotos. And if you'd like to purchase any of them or anything else that you like that you find on our website, you can use this promo code to get a free subscription and download any 10 images for free. So thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this presentation.